This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. This is Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio. Very happy to have you here, my friend. A review of Celebrity Reflection this week, doing a little ABC Island cruise, and staff writer Richard Sims is waiting in the wings with cruise news. Jumping to him right now. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Doug. Are we finally on, the same continent, at least?
Yeah.
You've been all over the place lately.
The same time zone, too. It's been a crazy... I think we chatted once I was in Malaysia, and once I was on, Star Princess last week. So it was 9 countries over the past 24 days. So it's been a whirlwind, but it's been cool. So we're back here in the studio, and we have a lot of news to unpack today, especially with Royal Caribbean rolling out yet another new private destination.
This Royal Caribbean story we're starting with, I don't know about you, but it came out of the blue and caught me completely by surprise. So last week, we reported that Royal Caribbean was offering some guests an opportunity to preview their new beach club, which will open later this year in Nassau. But all of a sudden this week, I'm scrolling Instagram, and all of a sudden I see this thing, and I thought it was like AI or something at first, and it said Royal Caribbean Santorini, and I'm like, what is this? Well, it turns out that they are opening a beach club in Santorini. There aren't a lot of details available about it yet, but the Santorini Beach Club will be part of kind of an overall day in that very, very popular part of the country or the world. We've seen stories in the news over the past year about how, Santorini, it's this dream destination, but so many people have been going there, and a lot of cruise ships have been going there, and they've been having issues with overpopulation. So this feels kind of like an interesting way to help deal with that by sort of putting together a day during which you see all the stuff you went to Santorini to see, the blue domes and the whitewashed the sand buildings, and then go to their beach club and spend some time on the beach where they have the gorgeous black sand and all that. And remember, there is one big difference here. So the beach clubs, this one and the one in Nassau, they are different from the perfect day type resorts. And the big difference is you pay to go to these. You can go to Perfect Day, and yes, there's a lot of things to pay for, but you can go there and not spend any money if you want. Whereas to go to the beach clubs, including the new one in Santorini, you pay. We don't yet know how much it's going to be. We've heard around $100 a day, but that was really for the Nassau Beach Club. We don't know how much the one in Santorini will offer. And we also don't know exactly what will be featured there yet. Did you know about this? Am I the only one who was caught off guard by it?
No, but it seems like cruise lines have this really good way of trying to skirt the system. Remember when Carnival launched Fathom to get into Cuba back in 2016?
Yeah.
And now there's this crazy overpopulation problem happening in these Greek Isle cruises, Mykonos, Santorini. They're all charging these crazy fees for cruise passengers to come visit. Well, it seems like it's just another way to say, hey, we're going to bring people there, but on our own terms. I mean, that's just my opinion.
I love it. I mean, I'm a big fan of beach clubs and stuff like that. I mean, even on ships, I love the Vibe Beach Club on NCL ships. So, and I am obviously not everyone is willing to pay for these things. I am one of those people who is yes, I will pay for that special experience. I'd rather not, but I will. So I'll be apparently by the end of, I can't remember if it's the end of 2026 or mid 2027, but by then they expect their portfolio of destinations to include 8 different places. So this is definitely something they're investing heavily in.
Yeah, it's wild. And Carnival Cruise Line is finally confirming a change that no one is going to like.
All right, get ready, nickel and dimers, because it wouldn't be an episode of Cruise News if we didn't have something just for you. This time it's Carnival Cruise Line hiking the price of Wi-Fi on its ships starting December 1st. Carnival, if you're not familiar with it, Carnival offers 3 tiers of internet: social, value, and premium. Technically, there's 4 if you want to count the premium multi-device package, which is exactly what it says. It's the highest level of internet you can get, and you can use it on multiple devices as opposed to just having one device where you have to like sign out of one and sign into the other to use it. The range of prices, like the difference between the lowest package and the highest package, is kind of staggering. Before the price increase, it ranged from $18.70 for the social program all the way up to $84 for the multi-device premium package. But now with the increase on any sailings after December 1st, they'll go from a low of $20.40 a day for the social all the way up to $90 per day for the premium multi-device package. That's an increase of, okay, well, it's in my contract that I don't do math, but it's $6 on the highest priced program. So, somebody else smarter than me can do the math. It's worth noting that these are the new pre-cruise prices, meaning if you buy your internet before the ship sets sail, on any ship after December 1st. As far as we can tell, Carnival hasn't yet determined or at least revealed what the price of onboard purchasing will be. But one thing I am 1000% sure of, it will be cheaper to buy it before you get on board than it will on board. Same as it always is with most things, drink packages, excursions, most things, you get it at least a little bit cheaper if you buy it in advance. Why? Because of course they want to have your money in their pocket as long as possible, as opposed to letting it sit in your pocket.
Well, even that social plan, man, I mean, gosh, it's like what, $20 now a device for a day? And remember when we sailed 2019 when you, Ashley, and myself sailed on Carnival Sunrise? It was only $7.75 a day. So
and I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah,
because at $7.75 a day, everyone will buy the social plan. Mm-hmm. And the thing with the social plan is they do that because you are basically going to be advertising for them for the next week. Yeah. You are going to be posting pictures of your cruise and of all of your food and all of your meals, and you're going to be making all your friends jealous. So they are actually getting you to pay $7.70 a day to become their de facto advertisers. And for $7.70 a day, it's not bad. But now we're looking at the minimum price as of December 1st being $20.40 a day. So you add that up, on a 7-day cruise. And again, I don't do math in my contract, but that's a lot of money. And it's so that you can advertise for them. It's a little crazy.
Yeah. Next up, we have a sad story that also serves as a great teaching moment.
I have to admit that as a solo traveler, this story kind of served as a warning to me in a way. It's also a case where the headlines on much of the coverage really, really, really annoyed me. Let's start with the facts. An 80-year-old woman from Australia was doing a solo cruise on a ship called the Coral Adventurer. I cannot even pronounce the name of the line, so I'm not going to try. I try and avoid making a fool of myself as much as possible. The ship stopped at Lizard Island, and she went on an excursion which involved hiking. During the hike, it seems as if maybe she got winded or just realized, hey, this is going to be more than I thought it was. So she told the rest of the group that she was going to go back to the ship. In some reports, they said that, she got separated, but it seems as if what really happened was she separated herself. She was going to go back to the ship. Something went wrong on the way back to the ship. We don't know exactly what, but she did not make it back to the ship. And a day later, the ship later set sail without her, and a day later, her body was found. Terrible, terrible tragedy, obviously. So those are the facts. But this is how the media spun it. The New York Post headline said, and I'm quoting, "Why was an elderly cruise passenger abandoned to die?" Jeez. And that's basically the spin you saw all across mainstream media. Now, you and I and our listeners who are very, very smart and very informed when it comes to cruise news and cruise stories know that the mainstream media is going to put the absolute worst spin on something. But what we also know is if you don't make it back to the ship on time, it's going to leave without you. That's just, that's just a fact. We don't know much about the excursion, but if I had to guess, I'm going to say it was not an excursion that was sanctioned by the ship, but because they usually wait for you. But even if it was, she left the excursion to go back on her own. So that sort of nullifies that particular issue. It really bothers me the way this is being spun in a lot of places, as if she died because the cruise line left her there, which is not at all the sequence of events. But the other thing to think about here is, and this is where it became a teachable moment for me and should be for other solo sailors, when you're on a cruise and you are traveling solo, always make sure someone knows where you are. Better still, have a partner, make friends with people on your sailing and on your excursions. Because when you're traveling solo, it's easy to sort of fly under the radar. Maybe I decide to go to my room and sleep for a whole day. I've been known to do that. Some call it sleep, some call it passing out, whatever you want to call it. But if you are traveling with people, and I don't mean people that you are traveling with, I mean you have met people on the cruise. If you go missing for 2 days, they're going to be like, well, he said he was going to take a nap, but 2 days is an extensive nap even for him. So it's really smart. I have long, because I am a huge fan of shows like Dateline, I have long been afraid of being accused of a crime I did not commit because I don't have an alibi. So whenever I go somewhere, and this is a dead true story, whenever I go on a cruise or even if I go into town for a drink, I always make sure that I have spoken to someone who can later identify that I was there because I don't want to be accused. In this case, I try on ships, and I do this naturally, but I'm also kind of newly aware of how smart it is to do this, to talk to someone, to befriend someone, so that if you go missing as a solo cruiser, someone thinks to notify someone. So there you go. There's your life lesson for the day.
Along those lines, a couple of weeks ago when I was hiking that volcano in Indonesia, I actually sent my location to my sister and my intern and said, just in case.
So somebody else pointed out that a really good idea, and I never thought about this. One of my neighbors, when I was talking about this story, suggested carry an AirTag, so that if you do go missing and people know that you had the AirTag, they can try and use that to try and find you. Now, if you fall in a volcano, which is what I was afraid you were going to do, then I don't think it'll work because it'll probably melt the AirTag, but who knows?
And speaking of volcanoes, a fire derailed a river cruise which had set sail only hours before, which, by the way, nothing to do with the volcano, but it was fire.
No, but that was a really good segue. I like that a lot. That was good. This was a ship called the Crown Empress, and it was on the first day of a 12-day sailing down the Nile in Egypt, which sounds amazing. But on that first night, around 6 o'clock, it appears a fire broke out in a bar area. And we hear all the time how, every announcement on every ship is about how fire is one of the biggest hazards you can possibly face when you are on the sea. And that is what happened here. The fire spread very quickly. The very fast-acting crew moved about 220 passengers who were on board up to a top deck while they dealt with the fire. The ship eventually pulled into a port on the Nile, and the passengers were evacuated. No passenger injuries were reported, although 3 crew members were hospitalized, most likely with, as the result of smoke inhalation. The ship, which was originally built back in 2004, was taken out of service. It's unclear how extensive the damage was or how long it'll be out of commission. But yeah, that was a terrible way to start off their cruise. And as far as I know, I don't think they were able to continue. They certainly weren't able to continue on that ship. The news story that I was reading did not indicate whether they were able to, get on a different ship and continue their sailing, but it certainly seemed to indicate that wasn't the case.
Next up, a pretty disturbing story involving a gun-carrying passenger.
Yeah, you're right. This one is scary, but on a couple of levels. So you may remember a while back we saw a woman posted a video of a gun in a safe on a Carnival cruise, and that was disturbing. In this case, A cruiser and his son were boarding a ship when security screening revealed a gun in the 77-year-old's luggage. This was in Italy, okay? They were getting on a ship in Italy. The man claimed that he had forgotten the gun was in his bag. He had a permit for the gun that was good in the United States, but of course that doesn't transfer to another country. And so the Italian authorities seized the weapon and they issued him a deportation order. But here's the part that freaks me out. The two guys had traveled from Tennessee to Italy, okay? Tennessee to Italy. How did they get the gun through airport security? It doesn't sound like they were purposely trying to hide it or anything. I mean, like the Italian authorities found it very easily. Why did nobody on the flights they took between the United States and Italy get it? That's a terrifying thought to me.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you're traveling with a gun, you can declare a gun, right? And then go through the proper steps at the Delta airline ticket counter, or whoever he was flying, where they fill the form out, they open up the case, make sure it's not loaded, check it, and then normally a police officer or someone brings it down to the plane and hands it to the captain. So you can transport a gun that way. But
Yes.
But he said he didn't know it was in his bag. So does that mean that
exactly?
But does that mean he didn't know it was in his bag when he left the U.S. and he did declare it leaving the U.S., or he didn't know it was in his bag in Italy? There's some gaps in the story here.
I mean, I feel like he has to have gotten on the plane with it without declaring it, because if he was the type of person who was going to declare his gun and have it registered and, give it over to the captain and all that, you would think he would do the same thing at security in Italy. Rather than risk, not only having the gun found, but then being sent back to the United States and missing your cruise. If you're going to go through all those steps to get on a plane, you would certainly do the same thing when you got to Italy, I would think. So I don't know. I'm not feeling that excuse.
And let's close with another Royal Caribbean story, this one involving changes to their loyalty program.
And hey, unlike the big changes being made to Carnival's program, I think people are going to like this one. So for a while now, Royal has offered status matching between the three brands which sail under the Royal Caribbean Group corporate banner, which would mean, if you're a Royal Caribbean passenger, you can get status matching on Celebrity or Silver Seas. But next year, they're going to introduce something called Points Plus. They haven't revealed exactly when this is rolling out, but it's expected to be sometime in early 2026, as I understand. What this new program basically says is you can decide where the points you earn are allocated. So let's say you usually sail on Royal Caribbean and you've got a lot of points that you've built up on Royal Caribbean, but you kind of want to try Celebrity. You've got a great deal, or it's going someplace you really want to go. So you book a cruise on Celebrity. Normally, the points that you earn on Celebrity would go into the Captain's Club, which is their version of the loyalty program. But now what they're saying is you will have the ability to say, I'm sailing on Celebrity, but most of my cruises are on Royal Caribbean. I would rather put the points over there. Now, there are a lot of details that have not been revealed yet. I think it's pretty safe to say you wouldn't be able to just move them around willy-nilly. Like once you move the points over to Royal Caribbean, they will sit there. They will stay there. But this is great because it's sort of one of the things a loyalty program does is lock you into a cruise line, or, that's what the cruise line wants to do. Carnival wants you to earn points with them and only sail with them. Royal Caribbean wants you to earn points with them and sail with them. This gives you a chance to try other ships and other lines under the same umbrella, under the same corporation, and put the points where they will do you the most good as a long-term loyal sailor. And I think that is such a good idea.
All right.
I wonder if any of the other lines will, will Norwegian do it? Will Norwegian say, hey, this is a really good idea. Let's do this with our various brands.
We'll have to stay tuned and find out. Staff writer Richard Sims, as always, thank you, man.
Always glad to be here.
The world is constantly changing. Your place for news is still the same. Online and on demand at cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
Dale and his wife just returned from an ABC Island cruise. Yeah, Aruba, Bonaire, Carousel on Celebrity Reflection, their first cruise with Celebrity Cruises. And Dale joins us on the line to chat about it. How you doing, Dale?
I'm doing great. How are you today, Doug?
Yeah, good. Good to talk to you again, and excited to hear about your ABC review here, plus your first time with Celebrity too. So a lot to unpack, but before we do, we'll take a step back. You're all the way out in the Pacific Northwest. So give us some pre-cruise thoughts. What made you want to take this sailing out of Port Everglades?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think for us, we really, really enjoy the Caribbean. And of course, we obviously it would be nice if we lived closer to Florida, but we don't. And so we always try and find cruises that kind of go to places that we haven't been before. And so we've done the Eastern Caribbean. We are doing the ABC Islands that we're talking about today, and then we're going to be doing a cruise on the Celebrity Excel in early 2027 going to the Western Caribbean.
So what we'll do here is we'll get you from the Northwest down to Port Everglades. Any pre-cruise time?
Anytime we go to Florida, we try and go 2 days early. I know most people recommend going a day early, but if you get any sort of delays coming out of Seattle, it could be really, really difficult to make up the time. And so we actually flew down 2 days before. Of course, that's an all-day trip, essentially coming from Seattle. We flew into Miami, took the Tri-Rail train up to Fort Lauderdale, stayed in a hotel there, and then we had the whole next day to explore Miami and kind of get to know the lay of the land before we got to get on the cruise ship.
When you're using the Tri-Rail in Miami, because we get a lot of questions about, whether you're sailing out of Miami, but it's actually cheaper to fly into Lauderdale or vice versa. Can you actually pick up the Tri-Rail right there near the Miami terminal and take it north?
Yeah, so we actually did fly into Miami, exactly. So when you get off the plane, there's a little like inter-airport train that takes you to the transit. And then from there, you have lots of options with taxis, the Tri-Rail, the Brightline, Uber, and Lyft and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's great. We actually took it, back and forth between Fort Lauderdale and Miami a couple of different times, and it was awesome. I thought it's a really, really convenient method of getting back and forth.
I've never tried that. I'll have to one day. So you make your way to the cruise port to board Celebrity Reflection. How was embarkation?
So from the curb to the ship, it was probably a half an hour, but that actually, I think, exaggerates it a little bit because we got through the terminal really, really fast. We arrived at 10:30 and they took us up to the little waiting room. And as soon as they started boarding the ship, we were probably on within less than 10 minutes. I mean, it is absolutely the smoothest embarkation I've ever had on any cruise I've ever taken.
As we said, your first time sailing Celebrity, the ship was launched in 2012. So you walk on board. What were your first impressions?
So I thought the ship looked great. I mean, it's definitely understated, particularly if you sail Royal Caribbean or Carnival extensively. But I mean, everything looked great. It was pretty bright. I know it got refurbished in 2022. I mean, you can certainly tell that they'd done a lot. The ship was in great shape. And then, when we, and I know you ask about our room, but when we got up our room, the room is the only thing that I can tell that they maybe didn't touch as much when they had it in dry dock, but everything else on the ship is just in tremendous shape. And like I said, it's very bright, but very understated is the way I describe it. I think I would suspect it's probably similar to what Princess and Holland America tend to look like.
It's been about 3 years or so since the last dry dock of Celebrity Reflection. So I want to talk about the stateroom. What kind of stateroom did you book, and what did you think of it?
Yeah, we had an Aqua class cabin. So that, of course, that means we got access to the Persian garden. Mm-hmm. Like I said, it was nice balcony, port side of the ship. Unobstructed view. It was very nice that way. I mean, the room itself was perfectly fine. I think the thing The only thing that was a little bit of a surprise is that, when the whole rest of the ship has obviously been refurbished, like I said, it looked like they didn't really touch the staterooms very much. And so, the carpet was a little worn. The fabric on the sofa was a little bit worn. I mean, nothing bad. I mean, nothing certainly that I would, complain about. The room was very clean, but certainly would hope that Celebrity will touch that when the next time that they work on the ship.
Yeah, we just had someone on review Celebrity Solstice a couple of weeks ago, and she said the same thing about the stateroom. She said, yeah, the rest of the ship looked pretty good, but the stateroom definitely could use a refresh, I think she said. So sounds like all these Solstice ships are in the same boat, I guess, pardon the pun there. So let's talk about the dining on board Celebrity. Now we'll go to the Ocean View Cafe, which is their buffet. What did you think of it, and did it ever feel too crowded during your sailing?
Yeah, I think the only day that it really felt crowded to me was on our our embarkation day. Obviously, lots of people go up there right away once they get on board the ship. We had pre-purchased the lunch that you can go down and have in the main dining room, so we didn't end up eating in the buffet the first day. But I think a lot of people, when I read reviews and saw reviews of Reflection, talked about, I think the food in the buffet is actually pretty good. It's, I would say it's at least on par with what you get in the main dining room in most cases. And in some cases, they do a little bit better. Not to complain about the food in the main dining room. Obviously, we didn't eat in the main dining room. We ate in Blue most of the time. But we really did enjoy it. I mean, it was very nice. Most days did not seem overly crowded. Obviously, I mean, if you hit it right at lunchtime, that probably would be the worst. But overall, I think they've got it designed pretty well. The flow through the buffet seems good. I think my favorite thing that I've seen that they do that they don't do as much on other cruise ships is each of their kind of little separate islands are very clearly labeled what food is there. So exactly, what you're looking for, and you don't end up kind of wandering around, which I think creates some of the congestion that you see on a lot of other buffets.
Yeah, this class of ship changed Celebrity's, I guess we'll say, buffet concept or layout. It used to just be straight lines like a cafeteria, but it moved more towards food islands here. Am I saying that correctly?
No, it is all separate islands. I mean, there is like I think the salad bar is probably the most kind of traditional buffet style. Mm-hmm. But then, everything else, they'll have certain types of food at each of the islands, and it's pretty well distributed that way.
And so you mentioned you dined in Blue instead of going to the main dining room, but did you go to the main dining room at all for like a breakfast or lunch one day, maybe brunch?
Yeah, we were strictly at Blue, but that was actually one of the things that surprised me a little bit is that we did go to the main dining room the first night that we were going to eat there because we didn't know, right? We saw that there was the main dining room menu, there was the Blue menu, and then of course there's the Luminaire menu. And so the first night that we went to the main dining room, that menu looked better for us that night. And then they said, oh no, you have to go to Blue, but you can order from the main dining room menu. And so the whole rest of the time, whenever we would eat in the dining room, it would always be at Blue.
How does Blue differ from the main dining room? I recall it being more of, because it's like spa-centric, more, I don't want to say all healthy options, but healthier options.
Yeah, we really enjoyed Blue. I mean, it is a healthier menu, and so that was great. And we were able to do a little bit of mixing and matching, ordering stuff from the Blue menu and from the main dining room menu as we needed. It's very bright dining room. I think it's got rose theme in it. I'm not sure if that's consistent across the rest of the Celebrity ships. But you would just come check in. They would check your stateroom number, see that you were Aqua class, and probably we didn't wait any more than 5 minutes any time to get seated at a table. So I thought it was a great experience. It was definitely calmer than some of the more chaotic waiting that can take place around the regular main dining room, which I think is, as I recall, is called Opus on the Celebrity Reflection.
Since Blue is a dedicated dining room for a certain class on the ship, how did it work for dining times? Do you just show up and they feed you, or do you have to make a reservation?
No, what we were told is just show up in any of the time that it's open, and they will have you seated really quickly. So, I mean, I guess it's one of those things that it depends on what matters to you. If you want to have the same wait staff every day, while Blue is a smaller dining room, you're still not likely to get that. But if you want to be able to get quickly in and get more individualized attention, Blue is really good for that. But no, we never had to make a reservation at all for it.
And then they do breakfast, lunch, and dinner in there. So it's a functioning dining room just for the aqua class.
Yeah, I do think they don't do lunch. I could be wrong on this. I don't think they do lunch on the import days, but they do breakfast and dinner. And I mean, import days, by the time we got back from our excursions, we're generally just running up to the buffet and grabbing something or going to the grill, as an option. Let's talk specialty restaurants. Which ones did you do? Yeah, we did. I think we probably did all of them. We bought a 4-restaurant package, and so we fully utilized that. We ate at Cuisine, which is the restaurant where they do the La Petite Chef, which is great. I mean, especially if you've never seen it before with all the animation stuff, that restaurant is really, really fun. We ate at Murano, which is their French specialty dining the second night. We went to, for lunch on day 3, which was our day that we were in Aruba. We went to the Porch and got seafood. And then I think our next one was on day 5. We ate at the Lawn Club Grill, which is primarily steak and pizza. And then day 6, we ate Tuscan Grill, which is their Italian restaurant. And then our last sea day, we ate at Sushi on 5 for our lunch, and we enjoyed it. So we did pay for, I think we paid for 2 of those, as I recall. Let's unpack this then. So we'll start at the Porch. Is this the one that is served up there at the top on the Lawn Club? Yeah, it's at the top of the ship on the side, right where the Lawn Club is. It is primarily seafood. So they have, seafood tower, shrimp, lobster, a lot of that stuff. I don't remember the name of the similar restaurant that Carnival has, but it's similar to that, although definitely more of a sit down experience. I mean, you do order. You order from like the counter, and then you go sit down, and then they bring everything out to you. The food was very good, very fresh. We ended up getting the seafood tower, and really enjoyed everything that was on it. It was a great lunch. It really was. All right, and then Murano French restaurant. What did you think of it? I liked it. I would probably say of the more traditional specialty dining, and I kind of loop Murano, Tuscan Grill, and Lawn Club Grill into that. I think it was the best one. Definitely a lot of really good French-inspired dishes, and very good. The service was great. We really enjoyed that. In fact, if I had to do it over again, we might have actually gone back there instead of maybe going to one of the other specialty restaurants. So okay, it was good. Do they still cook the lobster tableside? They do, yes. Yeah. Tuscan Grill, another popular one, especially if you catch it at the right time because you get to see an amazing sunset. But how was the food? So I will say yes, absolutely great views from there. My wife really, really liked her dish. I did not like my dish as much. Just to be fair to Celebrity, the waiter was very willing to switch out my dish. So I don't really blame them for it. It just ended up not being my taste, but I obviously I think it was well prepared. There was nothing wrong with the dish. It just ended up not really resonating with me as much as my wife's dish did. And La Petite Chef, talk to us about that and the whole experience eating with, what do they call it? Image mapping, table mapping? Yeah, we had never done anything like it. I mean, I know obviously they have some land-based variations. I really like it. I think the animation is, it's a good story that continues through. I mean, the only challenge is that, of course, if you don't get the main menu that the story is telling you, then it, of course, doesn't quite line up with the animation. And I don't know if this is happening on all Celebrity ships. So we were on. They were switching the story. And so if you went to it before we got to Aruba, you got the more traditional where you would get the lobster. And then if you went to it after Aruba, then I think it was a different seafood dish and a different land-based dish. We didn't end up going after Aruba, so I didn't get to see how the story changed. But it did look like it was a lot of fun. I mean, everybody that was in there seemed to have a really good time. And like I said, I definitely think you should do it at least once. And then if you really like the story, come back. If you don't, then, you don't really lose out. The food's very good. And you don't lose a food quality because it's more of a kind of niche type of restaurant. With you being in the Pacific Northwest, you have access to some amazing seafood. So I want to ask, how was the sushi there on Sushi on 5? So so here's the way I'll answer that. So first off, yes, I eat sushi a lot. My wife is not as big a fan of sushi. She really liked it, and I really liked it too. I mean, have I had better sushi in Seattle? Yes. But do I think that they do a good job with what they serve? Absolutely. It was very good. They have a good selection. It all was very fresh. The service in there was really good. And like I said, I think the best part was they had enough items on their menu that are not sushi, that my wife really enjoyed that, because she was a little concerned about going there because, like I said, she's not the biggest fan of sushi.
Because you did a dining package where you pre-purchased 4, and then you bought the 2 additional restaurants on board, did you find the value was there for that package?
Yeah, I definitely think we saved money buying the 4-pack. Having to do it over again, I would have just purchased all 6 ahead of time, because I think you do get a little bit of savings. I think there's also a choice that you have to make. Like, I want to be very clear for anybody who listens to this. The food in Blue and I'm sure in Opus, the main dining room, was very good. I mean, we did eat in there a few nights as well. It's just that, because we were this is our first real major cruise without our kids, we were really trying to kind of enjoy and do things that we might not do as much normally. But all of the specialty dining was very good. Like I said, I think Murano was definitively the best. But we did like the other places. And like I said, the Tuscan Grill, while it wasn't to my taste so much, that was specific to the item I got. It was not specific to the quality of the food in there.
Being a celebrity newbie, how did the entertainment stack up for y'all?
Yeah, so obviously entertainment is very, very subjective. So I would say that if you're just going for the normal song and dance shows, probably Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, and Carnival, probably I'll do a little bit better. I mean, they're more mainstream in terms of the songs that they're going to do, especially with some of their theme nights like 80s and that sort of thing. But I did think that the dancers and singers on the Reflection were very good. And they brought in some really excellent guest acts. I mean, we had a singer who had been in the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. We got someone who had been on American Idol as a singer. We got Dan St. Paul, who's a comedian. He was very, very funny. And then we got James Seelan, who's a magician out of Las Vegas, and he was very entertaining. So definitely some great guest acts. And like I said, definitely the song and dance shows were definitely not terrible. I mean, I enjoyed them. They weren't maybe as high quality as what I've seen on some of the more mainstream type of cruises.
Okay, then outside of the theater, we'll talk about maybe musical venues, trivia, what have you, whatever's happening around the ship, an acoustic player. Did you find yourself returning to one spot?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to do terrible on this. The bar that you walk through to go to all the specialty restaurants, we obviously spent a lot of time there since we did eat in the specialty restaurants a lot, and they had very good musicians. I mean, the music quality throughout the ship was extremely high quality. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's going to be a bit depending on your taste. You're not necessarily going to get, maybe as more like rock shows and that sort of thing. But it's going to be good. There's going to be, there's going to be a little rock. There's going to be a little country, a little pop. It's a good variety. And so I don't think you're going to struggle to find music you like on the ship.
Sea days, as far as crowds and congestion, what'd you think?
So I never felt, and I legitimately mean this, I never felt crowded on the Reflection at all, even on the sea days. Now, I do recognize that up on the pool deck, could definitively be very busy. Because my wife and I are both adults, we were able to spend time in the solarium, which was very relaxing. And then also with our aqua class, we were able to go to the Persian Garden, which was also very nice and not crowded. But really, I think Celebrity does a really good job with traffic flow on the ship. It does not feel crowded, and you can get around to things pretty easily. I think the thing I noticed is there are lots of activities, certainly not as back to back as you might find on like Carnival or Royal Caribbean, but there's a lot of fun activities. I mean, there was some arts and crafts activities. They of course did the standard trivia, the standard bingo. One thing that I particularly noticed is they had a different game show that they did each night. Kind of down by where the main dining room and the the suites dining room is, and those were very, very fun. It looked like my wife and I participated in a few of those, and just it seemed like everybody was having a really good time. So I guess I would say if you like the activities that are on, kind of more of the mainstream, celebrity may not be for you, but they certainly have a lot of activities, and the entire entertainment staff, with the cruise director, her name was Kate. They were amazing to interact with.
Looking at the deck plan here, are they renting, I don't know, like your own private space, I guess we'll call it, not cabanas, but a space on the lawn club for sea days?
Yeah, they are. You can actually rent them on sea days and on port days. Obviously, on port days they're way cheaper than on sea days. We did walk up by there. I will say I was never actually tempted to rent one of those simply because the lawn club is not, of course, right by the pools, and so. It's definitely nice if you wanted to just be up there and be a little more relaxed and get some sun. But if you wanted to be down, getting into the pools or the hot tubs, then, probably not the best spacing. Although it is nice to have your cabana be on, fresh grass, and, then you don't have to wear your shoes, and that's pretty nice.
This was the ABC Islands. Did you do it in that order?
No, we did it Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire, and we were trailed down the entire way by the Carnival Horizon, and then we followed the Carnival Horizon all the way back. But I think the Horizon actually leaves from Miami, but it definitely felt like we were in like a convoy going down to the islands.
You leave Everglades, you get to Aruba. Talk to us about your day there.
Yeah, so Aruba was great. I would say Aruba is the most touristy of the three islands. All three islands we had excursions on, and so in Aruba we actually did the submarine. Which I will just say is truly an amazing excursion. You get to go down and see a couple of shipwrecks, or maybe it's a shipwreck and a plane wreck. Just a lot of different fish, a lot of different coral. It was absolutely amazing. Now, of course, my one caution will be, I would absolutely recommend the excursion to anyone, unless you are claustrophobic. The submarine is incredibly tight. Yeah. So, but the views are just outstanding. And what I thought they did a particularly good job of is it doesn't matter what side of the submarine you're on. They really did try and make sure that everybody got to see everything.
When you say claustrophobic, are we talking elevator claustrophobic or small aircraft claustrophobic?
I would say a small aircraft that's claustrophobic. So you go down into the submarine, and you are sitting either facing the starboard or the port side, and you are literally in your neighbor's lap. There is no space at all between you. And if you were down there and the air conditioning went out, I think it would feel stifling really, really fast. I would just say you make good friends with your neighbors because you're sitting right next to them.
Did you do anything after the sub excursion?
Yeah, once we got back to the port, we did a lot of walking around downtown Aruba and did some shopping, and it was really really enjoyable. The weather was perfect. I can definitely see why people go there. Probably, I would say if I had wanted to go to the beach that day, that probably would have been the best island to go to the beach at. I think some of the beaches are fairly close to the cruise terminal there. There were multiple ships in port with us that day. That was actually the only day that we were in the port with the Carnival Horizon. But we also had the Celebrity Eclipse was there. And then the Free Winds ship was there as well. So there was a fair amount of people in port that day. Although I will say, that being said, it did not feel crowded. The Eclipse left about halfway through the day. I think it had stayed overnight. So the port definitely got quieter the later in the day that it went.
Free Winds is that Scientology vessel. I've seen some crazy documentaries on it.
Yes, and it was weird because the way that we were docked, it was blocked in. So, I guess they were staying there for several days. It was just interesting because, of course, the reflection is so much bigger. So you could see down onto the Free Winds, and it just seemed like super, super quiet. Although had the gangway on it runs right alongside the ship. And I don't know that I would have wanted to take that gangway. It was pretty steep.
Curacao was up next. How was your day?
Oh, Curacao, beautiful. So I would say if you think Aruba's too touristy, and Bonaire is not touristy enough, I think Curacao kind of fits right in the middle. Obviously, I feel Curacao felt like it's the most Dutch of the islands, even though all three of them are. It's got the most of the houses painted the different little, pastel colors, and just an absolutely beautiful island. On that island, we did a semi-submersible. So it's the boat itself stays above the water, but it has like the deep hull, and then you go down into the hull, and then there's windows that you can look out and see things. In retrospect, I probably wouldn't have done both of those. I probably would have chosen one over the other. And all honesty, I probably would have just chosen the submersible and probably should have done something else in Curacao. But we did like that one. That one is also not for the claustrophobic. And that one, when you go down into the hull, the seats, they're bench seats, and they fold out. Actually, I should say they're metal bench seats, and they fold out from the hull itself. And so very, very limited leg room. But once again, just spectacular. And the reason we chose both of those is just my wife and I really, really like, sea life. Particularly my wife loves sea turtles, and we like seeing the coral and all that. And it was just amazing to see all of that from. So both similar experiences. I definitely would say, if any of your listeners want to go to the ABC Islands, I would do one or the other. They're both equally good, but I probably wouldn't do both.
You say they were equally good, but which one would you tip your hat to?
Probably the submarine, just because you actually go more than 100 feet beneath the water. So you're a little bit deeper. You can actually see the water change color a little bit.
Yeah.
You get to see some sea life and some coral that you might not see on the semi-submersible. Gotcha. That would be my choice.
And rounding it out with Bonaire, how was your time there?
Bonaire, I loved. The Bonaire is a great island if you don't want to go to something where it feels like it's been overdeveloped. I mean, Bonaire still feels very much like, more natural, the island, and I will say that's good and bad. On that day, we did a island tour, and we went to their beach club. And so the island tour was spectacular. We got to go see where they make the salt. We got to see a ton of flamingos. We even got to see a whole flock of flamingos take off and fly towards Venezuela. And, the island is very scenic, although, to be honest, it is a desert type of island. So it's not going to be like you're going to see a ton of trees and things. But that day we saw a lot of different native wildlife. And so the tour itself was great. We did stop at the salt factory. We were able to get some of the unprocessed salt, which caused a problem when we got off the ship, which we'll get to in a little bit. Geez. But it was absolutely amazing. Now the beach club is great also, but if I was going to go to like a beach club type of experience, I probably should have gone on one of the other islands, because like I said, Bonaire is the least tourist developed, and so the actual swimming area did have a lot of sea anemones and other things, and it was very rocky, so it definitely wasn't kind of like a white sand beach. Although they did have a natural lagoon to swim in, which was very nice, and the service was phenomenal there. You could order food, you got a free bottle of water, you got a free bed thing to lay in. We actually did rent a cabana there because it was like $50 and it was pretty inexpensive, and we really enjoyed it. It was honestly kind of a perfect excursion to end on, because it was so relaxing. After you get done with the tour, you had a few hours just to enjoy the beach club and swim in the lagoon.
Awesome. And then it was back to the ship. Did you do any nighttime stays at any of these ports?
We didn't. We stayed in Aruba until about 11 p.m. local time, and we stayed in Curacao until about 8. So we were, the port days for both of those were very long. Bonaire was a 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., so it did feel slightly more rushed. By the time we got done with the Bonaire tour, we had about a half an hour to explore the port before we had to get back on the ship, where, you didn't feel rushed at all in either Aruba or Curacao. But it was really, really nice. It was very enjoyable, and on all three islands, like I say, all three islands are very unique. Like I said, they're all Dutch, but you definitely get a different feel on how touristy each island is. Before we started recording, you mentioned that you had some great sea days. Yeah, I'd actually go kind of combined with the first couple of sea days. So, we, on our first sea day, we did a couples massage. That's a fairly normal thing, but it's very nice. Day 2, though, we did a steak cooking class, which is up at the Lawn Club Grill. That experience was completely worth it. The chefs that were there helping the people on the excursion were amazing. The steaks came out great. They gave, some really good tips on how to make your steak your steaks better. And then on on our third sea day on the way back, we did one of the behind the scenes tours, which I've done a few of those on other cruises I've been on. I really, really liked the celebrity one, though. It felt like that, the various stops that we had, that the people were very friendly and, and answered a lot of questions, and actually seemed like they were happy to see people come through, which I got to imagine is very disruptive for them.
Yeah. You head back to Port Everglades. It's time to debark, but tell us the salt story.
Okay. So the debark process was probably, I would say, a lot worse than embarkation. The lines were very, very long to get off the ship. But the salt story is, as we go to the part where you scan your sea pass to get off the ship, we were told that the U.S. Customs Department had decided we needed additional scrutiny. Now, that wasn't a problem in and of itself. I mean, both my wife and I guessed pretty quickly that it was probably due to the salt, although to be fair, they never told us that. I think that the problem was it didn't feel like the celebrity staff knew exactly how to deal with that. Like they gave somebody that they were escorting us down to the U.S. Customs, but then the person kind of kept standing in the lines that everybody else was in to get off. And one of the things that we asked is, because we did have this additional excursion to the Everglades, we asked celebrity, are we going to be able to make this excursion? And they kind of kept saying to us, well, we're not sure. If you don't, we'll refund it to you. And so finally, my wife and I asked the person who was escorting us, it's like, if you're taking us to U.S. Customs anyway, can we not like bypass this? And I think I just want to be clear, Doug, I'm not somebody who line skips, but I mean, if they're taking us to customs, just take us to customs so we can deal with whatever the issue is. And so finally we kind of convinced them. And so as we were walking past people who were standing in the line, we kept saying, just so you know, we're not skipping the line. We're being taken to U.S. Customs. Apologies for any problems we're causing. And then when we got to U.S. Customs, like I said, they never told us that was the salt. They asked both me and my wife, our names. My luggage was the luggage that was there in Customs. My wife's wasn't. And so obviously it was my luggage, which is where the salt was. So they didn't actually, like, we never felt uncomfortable talking to U.S. Customs. It was just a little bit of an unusual end to the cruise. Like, I'm like, what did they find in my luggage? So, but then, like I said, we figured ultimately that it was the salt. And then, of course, everybody else that had gone and gotten salt that we saw said, oh, you should have put that in your carry-on. And I'm like, well, I didn't know. It was just, it was just some salt that I picked up in Bonaire. So
interesting. Did the dog hit on it?
I'm guessing. I mean, like I said, they never said anything to us about it. They just, I mean, and the dog wasn't there. I mean, I assume the dog was going through the rest of the luggage, but yeah, they were U.S. Customs was very polite. I think, my tip there, and I suspect you would agree, because I know you've traveled a lot. We were very polite back to them. We're just like, hey, whatever, the issue is, we're happy to answer any questions. I told the guy, like, if you need me to open my luggage, I'm happy to do so. And he's like, no. And he asked us where we came from, and, and he asked us if we were going back home that day, which we were. And he's like, okay, you're good. He scanned our passports and let us go.
Okay. Interesting. So
I guess the good news is we ended up getting off the ship relatively quickly as a result.
Right.
But like I said, I feel unfortunate because like I said, I don't want to skip lines. I mean, it's not my nature. And we did make the excursion, which ended up being great.
Yeah. And talk to us about that. So you talked to us briefly about it at the top of the interview. So it was the Florida Everglades and then some?
Yeah. So one of the things that my wife had said when we went on this is that she really, really wanted to see the Everglades. She'd never been there. And so we had to decide if we were going to go the day before the cruise or go the day after, or not the day after, sorry, the day of getting off. We decided to go the day of getting off. It was great. I mean, we got on a bus. They had two buses, one for people leaving from Miami, one for people leaving from Fort Lauderdale. They took us to the Everglades. You got to go on one of the airboats around the Everglades, and then you got to go see the alligator show, and then, of course, do some shopping in the Everglades gift shop. Really phenomenal. The airboat tour was great. The tour guide had a lot of information about the Everglades, and also you got a lot of that on the bus ride there as well. The alligator show, probably a little bit underwhelming, but I mean, I didn't have a problem with us going to that. It was fine. It just, it was the Everglades, the airboat. I would have rather had double the time on the airboat rather than going to the alligator show. But I did learn a lot. To be fair, I learned about all the good work that group does in terms of rescuing alligators that might otherwise, have to be put down because they get into people's backyards and some of that. So it was, so they're definitely doing some good work there to save the alligators.
There are a lot of good organizations like that in Florida. After this tour wrapped up, was it straight to the airport?
Yeah, and we flew out of Fort Lauderdale because, to your point, we were actually able to get into Miami cheaper and out of Fort Lauderdale cheaper. So it worked out great. They took us right back to the airport. Just plenty of time to get checked in and get to our gate. And it was really nice. I've never done an excursion at the end of a cruise before, but I'm kind of glad I did because, the flights from Fort Lauderdale to Seattle are somewhat limited. So we would have had to sit at the airport for several hours otherwise. And that wouldn't, of course, been nearly as fun.
Being a first timer on Celebrity yourself, do you have any tips to offer anyone?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. The first is, while Celebrity is not trying to sell you as much stuff as you might find on other cruise lines, they are very aggressive the first day on both the drink package and on the specialty dining. It didn't really bother me, but it was a little more than I might have expected because they are more of an upscale line. So I kind of that bothered me a little bit. And then, of course, when we did do our couples massage, they were pretty hard selling on extending the length of the massage, buying their products. And once again, I know that's fairly normal on all the cruise lines. I just kind of maybe expected Celebrity to do a little bit better on that since you're already paying a premium. Yeah. The last one is something I think most people wouldn't necessarily think of. The photo opportunities on the Reflection were not as good as what you might get on Carnival or Royal Caribbean, in that they do the photo setups every night that you're on board. So you can, of course, always go and get the different backdrops. And that's great. But they don't do the photos when you're getting off the ship, which, I know a lot of people don't like those. If you want to do those, you actually have to go to their photo shop and get your pictures taken there, which is not something that was made clear. So I didn't actually find out about that until we were on our first sea day going back. So I would say then, if you go on Celebrity and you want to buy like a photo package, be very careful about that, because you're probably going to get less photos than you think you are.
Back to the massage. Nothing kills a vibe quicker than an upsell after an amazing, relaxing massage.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I would rather just be done and like, okay, thank you, I got my relaxing massage. So definitely don't like that. One thing I do want to mention is that the cruise that we were on, there was a large group that was on board. Now, I want to be very fair. They themselves were great. I didn't have any problem with the group itself. They were, representing a certain demographic. They were great, very nice people to talk to. But what it did do is it caused a number of activities to get moved around. And so while that was conveyed in your daily schedule, particularly people who had been on Celebrity before were a little thrown off because, they would think things would be in a certain place and they weren't. And then, of course, that meant that one night that the solarium got shut down for this group. Once again, I'm not complaining about that. I certainly understand that the large groups are going to book. My bigger issue, honestly, was the people that were on board Celebrity that were complaining about the large group, which felt to me to be for very unfound reasons. Like I said, I just got to know people in the group and talk to them, and I didn't really mind that at all. Like I said, tiny bit annoying to have stuff moved, but I mean, that's part of the deal as well. So it didn't bother me, but it bothered me to hear other people kind of getting so bent out of shape about it.
Was the value there for the price you paid?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we booked another Celebrity cruise when we were on board that one. I mean, definitely it's more expensive, but I feel like the value you get is just better. I mean, even just minor things like the fact that they made up our room twice a day, which of course most cruise lines aren't doing anymore. I mean, that, it's minor things like that. Definitely the food quality consistently was higher than what I've had on other cruises. And like I said, I know not everybody has found the staff on Celebrity to be particularly friendly. We found them very friendly, particularly the entertainment staff. And the biggest thing I found, Doug, is if you asked for something, they did their very best to accommodate it. And there was never a sense of like, oh no, we don't do that. So I think, it's those things are small things, but I think they add up. And, it's like, I don't mind paying a little more if I'm going to get, I guess I would call it more of what the traditional cruise experience was like. What
was the biggest highlight of this cruise?
Absolutely, the itinerary. I mean, the ABC Islands are just gorgeous. I would love to go back to them. The ship itself, like I said, is beautiful, but I really, really like the itinerary. I like it being 8 days versus 7 days. I've decided that's my favorite cruise length, and just honestly enjoyed every part of that vacation.
And your final thoughts of Celebrity Reflection?
Yeah, my final thoughts is just it's a beautiful ship. It has great staff. Like I said, the rooms could use a little bit of refurbishment, but they're certainly acceptable. And I think going out of Fort Lauderdale is a lot of fun. It is certainly not as crowded as Port Canaveral or Port of Miami are. And I would highly recommend people that are looking to try something that's a little more upscale to go ahead and try Celebrity and see if that fits their demographic.
All right. We've been talking with Dale about his 8-night sailing aboard Celebrity Reflection. Dale, thank you so much for sharing your vacation with us. Always good talking to you, my friend.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you too, Doug. I always enjoy it.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,